Good afternoon. Welcome to Follow Up Podcast, episode 23. Today we are going over the podcast, How Gen Z Sees the World. It's another plain English podcast. And it had a guest, Ayla Scallion, who I recognized her voice when when I was listening to the podcast. And turns out I already followed her on TikTok. She's kind of like a new aged financial reporter. I thought she was really good. I don't know when I started following her, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. But she's good at relating to the younger generation when it comes to finance. She's in on a lot of, how people our age invest, our age and younger. And this is a podcast that I immediately was like, I really want to talk with Conley and Manning and get their opinion about it because you guys are kind of close. I don't know if you're quite Gen Z,
Would
but
be
you're right there.
Yeah, I'd be that tier 2 category of Gen Z she talked about.
I'm a day or two away from there, but close.
And then we got a new guest, our dad, Kirk Price. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it started with an interesting breakdown of the different types of Gen Zs. There's a before and after COVID, and then there's the before and after, like, she described it as technology being a tool, or you think of it as like part of the environment, which I thought was really interesting because I definitely think of it as a tool. I'm definitely not part of that group. Conley, how do you think about technology and social media? How would you describe it?
I like to look at it as a tool. I think that's the optimistic view to look at it. I don't know if I would be in like the general population for that though, or at least for my age. I think there's obviously all the people making money off of it, right? And that's all like kind of the Gen Z age.
So we talk about tool. What are you talking about as far as the tool aspect?
Like, we think of it, or at least I do, as like a way to communicate better with people that I'm not, I don't live in the same city anymore. I look at it as a way to entertain myself. But Gen Z looks at it, this is kind of how I took it from her, as like what happens on the internet, what people say about you on the internet is your real life. You can't escape it. It's part of the social fabric that you're in. And they talked about having a negative relationship with it. But I don't know. So it was, Dad, can you picture your first day of work being virtual? Because Gen Z, when they graduated college, it was during COVID. So their first day of work was via WebEx. Can you imagine how weird that would be?
That would definitely be not. You're not integrating with the workforce like that. That's for sure.
Nope. And it's like,
There's no
I
bomb.
remember my first job, and you get sat next to this, guy that's been doing it for 20 years, and he like shows you the rope. You're like, this is your buddy, and he kind of, shows you how to be a professional. But these guys are waking up, rolling out of bed in their PJs, logging in at 8.
Hopefully they have the clothes on.
And it's like, we don't assign much work to a new person. I just picture them like messing around on their phone all day, and that's how their career starts.
Yeah, for sure. I think I witnessed some of that. I was just after the peak COVID hires, but from what I've talked to people, yeah, I mean,
So you were in college, Conley?
yeah, I was in college. I think a lot of it is most of the work was just being pushed off. Even for the main workforce, it felt like that they were kind of just pausing. Most projects and deadlines were all pushed back.
So what was it like having friends that couldn't find jobs out of college? Was it normal? Like, was that common?
Yeah, I think it's pretty common.
That sucks. The one thing she talked about was why is this generation so down on the I guess it was a question about why they're going right. And her answer was they look at their future and they don't see a predictable career path to a successful American life. And so they want it changed, right? They don't trust anymore that they can go to college and get a job and work hard and it'll all be okay. And man, if you lose that, yeah, people are going to want to blow stuff up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good read on the situation. And then you have
Why do you think they feel like that? Is it because their college debts are so high compared to the type of job they're getting and their job they're not getting, or what do you think that is?
So her main conclusion was housing was at the root of it, and I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, the return on investment for college, except for like a handful of degrees, is now negative. The
Do you think that proportion is skewed though because of the new degrees that have been introduced into college?
you know that's part of it. I don't think it's the main part. Like a nurse, that used to be you go get a nursing degree and you go out and you find a job, you're going to have a decent living, right? Now you're going to struggle. It's going to be a fight now. I think. What do nurses make? 80 grand a year.
They start at like 75. 70.
So you're not in any
That's-
major city. You're not you're not buying a house.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know how much the pay would change for a major city, but what is the salary you think they would be able to do that at though? Are you thinking like 6 figures?
I don't know. So let's see if I can do math real fast. If you're making 80 grand a year, that's like what, $600 a paycheck, something like that, every 2 weeks. So you can probably afford a $600 REIT.
$600 every 2 weeks? No, it would be like
Sorry, it's been a while since
your post tax
divided by
300.
divided by 26. I don't know. The number didn't come right. But yeah, it's just like, and I don't think nursing is the only one. I mean, you could kind of rattle off accountant. You could rattle off. There's a lot of like. It's easier to list the ones that still pay out, like engineer, doctor, lawyer. It kind of stops there. I mean, what other degree are you for sure going to call college a good investment on?
Can I give you an old guy's point of view?
Yeah, that's why you're on.
Why it's harder to do stuff like that now, because your base for a living every year that you go by, and I'm 63, so my 45 years in the workforce, every year that goes by, the standard base is higher. And what do I mean by that? I mean, well, when I got out of school, you didn't have to have a computer. You didn't have to have a cell phone. You didn't have to have a car with automatic windows, with automatic everything. You didn't have to have a Starbucks coffee every day. That's $2,000 a year if you add it all up. You didn't have all these subscriptions to all these different services, internet, and also like social media and video services and things like that. You maybe had like one bill for that instead of like getting several. The base keeps going up as far as just what's considered your standard to get by.
Yeah, good life.
Yeah, your basic standard of living is like so much higher than it was back then too, though. So a lot of people don't understand that, but it's still the percentage of your housing costs versus your starting salary is a lot higher than it ever was.
Yeah, you're right. So like, there's that Jimmy Carr line. It's like 100 years ago, no one had hot showers, which is kind of wild to think about. When next time you're in a hot shower, the King of England didn't have hot showers 100 years ago. But it's. I think the bigger thing for me is, you're not as well off as your parents. Every generation has been better off than their parents since America started. I think I'm not that big of a historian, but I'm just trying to picture, like, our grandpa could have been a mailman and he would have owned a home. He would have had a happy family with a stay-at-home wife. Could you picture that now? I can't even picture that.
That's so crazy to think that that's like a thing. That's just like,
That was a respectable job.
yeah, it doesn't seem like that's reality. Is that like, I don't know. Is that accurate? Like,
I think so. It's definitely accurate as far as like, you didn't have to have like a college degree job to get by. And then also every job, whether it's a post office or just a regular worker, they had retirement from their company.
Or a pension.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they got
pension's gnarly.
because you were guaranteed so much money a year for the rest of your life, like at 80% of your salary or 50% or whatever, where you don't have that now. You're responsible for yourself. And when we take responsibility to, we abuse it so much that it's usually not there for most people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those pensions. I can't even fathom having a pension and just being like, I'm staying at this company for the next 30 years because I'm gonna retire here. I'm gonna get a fat pension. I'm gonna be just fine. I can't even picture it anymore.
I didn't learn what a pension was like this past year. I didn't know, and then when I figured out, uh, I learned of some people who were like some of my friends' parents or peers' parents that were getting pensions. I was like, they get what percent of their salary for the rest of their life? So I was like, that sounds like a lottery. That's awesome.
And that's why we're broke.
Well, yeah, it's
It's
kind of
okay
a
when you live
pyramid
to
scheme.
65, so long the average person got collected pension for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. But when you live to 80, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and you see the recent clips, Dad, where if you look at Social Security, they only invested in T bonds because they wanted to be risk adverse. And if you would have invested in the stock market instead, they missed out on 7% year over year returns. The difference was 11 to 4. That's like when you think about Social Security in trillions of dollars, that's a lot of money. I mean, maybe if they would have taken the stock market and it would have crashed, then they would have got shit for it not being risk averse. But man, there was one guy on one of the news stations. He said if every dollar I put into Social Security, I would have instead kept and put into the stock market, just a generic S&P 500. I'd have $8 million right now. He had gray hair. I mean, I'm sure he retired, but still, imagine each American having their own $8 million right now instead of paying in Social Security their whole career. And inflation would be really bad.
Yeah, I mean that seems like a really big buzz topic right now is the social what to do with Social Security.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be tough. Either way, the burden's on the working generation right now because if you keep it going, you're going to pay into something you'll never get. If you let it go, you got to take care of your parents. For
Yeah,
most Americans, I mean, I can't imagine how many.
I mean, I can stop doing nothing. I can do nothing now and live off you guys.
Conley's got you, don't you, Conley?
sure do.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to have parents that aren't dependent on it. But I mean, you, Dad, Grandma's got Social Security. I'm sure that's a big portion of her income.
That's the only income she has.
Yeah, she's down to that. So, you know, I don't want to keep paying the Social Security, but that immediately puts the burden right back on you. I mean, it stops the bleeding, but it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, it makes you wonder like how. So is Social Security is that federally backed and ran set up?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny because when they started Social Security, the law was they were never allowed to take more than 2% of your paycheck, and now it's up to like 11%. And some of the estimates say that in order to fund it appropriately, they'd have to increase it, depending on which one you look at, to 18 to 25% of your income to keep it going.
You know what I think? If we can hold on as a society, a U.S. society, for another 10 or 20 years with our system that we have right now, without it falling apart, breaking financially, I think the coming of the robots and price of everything is going to go down to almost free for so much labor intensive things with robots. They'll be able to they can clean your house, they can put a new roof on your house, they can put a new fence up, they can mow your yard, they can do all these services that you have to either do labor yourself or pay somebody for. And I think that's going to help a lot in the future, don't you? I mean,
I
no,
mean,
that's a really good idea. I'm laughing at my camera being blurry.
like that directly to like whenever we get there, we will have to have like general income, right? I don't
Mhm.
see how you don't
Yeah. No, that's
immediately.
a really good point, Dad. I didn't think about it like that. Like if you believe in that dream, that utopia, just hold it together with bubble gum and popsicle sticks, limp along. That's an interesting thought.
Musk says there will be 10 million or 10 billion robots like in just a few years. They're going to outnumber the citizens or the people.
By land.
Yeah. Well, so that's funny you say that, Conley, because one of the things they talked about on this episode was this. One of the I'm blanking on the word. One of the results of growing up with technology being so important is the people are kind of rebelling against technology. And what I see a lot is a lot of younger people, myself included, want to just go out get a farm, be self-sufficient, get away from the hustle and bustle. I mean, that's not a trend anymore. That is a full-blown, it's got some movement.
That escalated a lot after COVID.
Yeah, but I did that. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a wave before like the next wave will be once we have autonomous cars. I mean, I don't see how suburbs of cities don't just explode even more than they are right now. Like suburbs of suburbs. It's
Just
gonna.
boop, and you fall back asleep as you drive into work.
COVID was a max exodus. I mean, if you have like fully autonomous vehicles and it's at scale, I don't see like if you can't commute to the office in an office, like that's going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, that can reduce traffic a lot too because you get to have a van pick you up and it picks up four of the people right on your way to work. That's like maybe cost you 5 minutes, but you're like six people in a car instead of one person.
Well, and ideally, once you get all the vehicle, I mean, obviously, I think full autonomous vehicles on the road is like, I don't even know if that will ever happen. But the more autonomous vehicles you have, the less likely I think you would be to have traffic jams and stuff. Because I would imagine they don't do it now, but if they could communicate with each other, right? Traffic jams happen because like you get bottlenecks, and you could prevent those bottlenecks at a higher rate too. So hopefully, your traffic jams and cities would start to minimize.
So I've seen a real move of people from cities or like liberal cities, but I haven't quite seen examples of people in my life going to the boonies. Even though that's kind of everyone wants that, no one's doing it. Have you guys seen anybody in your lives kind of say, okay, I do want the farm, I'm going for it?
I don't necessarily want a farm, but your mom and I want to get property and just be kind of self-sufficient with our own garden and chickens and stuff like that on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Still part of society, but you are away and you can have your solitude and be away from the city.
Right. And you have your freedom. But so that's what I see a lot of people wanting and talking about. I haven't seen anybody do it. And I'm kind of wondering why. If it's just like people say it,
Does it relate back to the issue directly of not having enough money? I would assume you wouldn't want to make that move until you have enough like savings or money to know long term you won't have to go back to the city to get enough money, to sustain.
That's weird though, because I think every year they're getting further away from it than closer. I
Uphill battle.
I mean, wages are losing against inflation. And unless you're going to be one of the few, top 5% of your age group at your workforce, you're going to lose to that inflation race. Unless Doge fixes it all. And, maybe. But I don't think so. I don't think they'll stop printing. I mean, they've talked about saving like what? $200 billion on a $4 trillion budget.
Even if they save $1 trillion, they're still going to have to print.
I think
with that debt they have.
I'm curious at this point. I think we've been loading up to it, and Dad's been conservative. But where's the Bitcoin, the decentralized currency? Where does it play into this?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I know you're wanting to answer it.
Well, I think that's going to be part of like, from what I understand, as far as all like the AI and the robots and everything, they're all going to be set up on a kind of Bitcoin network too. So all the stuff that they do, transactions, we all run through Bitcoin. But that's just from what I hear through the pipeline. But I don't know if that really answers your question about where all this is going with Bitcoin.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting was they were talking about the angst that Gen Z has, and that did Banks just take out Conley? Well, so they were talking about how, they're anxious about their career paths, and they're wondering if they'll have a career with the robots and the AI, right?
Yeah.
Which I think they're
Career out there for a lot of people, though. So a lot of
I agree. I wondered about that for our kids, or for my kids, which is going to come way too fast. I mean, 10 years away, Max will be joining the workforce. But so these kids, they're plugged in enough. They see what's coming. They're like us. This world's not far away. She made a comment about a lot of us find our, we describe us. I'm an engineer. You're a doctor. Conley's a programmer, right? That's who we are. It's part of your identity. And these kids are going to have to find out who they are without a career defining that. That's weird.
Got to get a higher purpose someplace, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember how hard it was to find, to find yourself, to figure out who you're going to be in a world where you just had to pick a career. Like, that was hard enough. You take all that away, and it's going to be a big change in development. Like, what replaces that milestone?
Well, even worse yet, you add on top of it all the more current generations, the further out you get down the line, year wise, the less they are involved with people anyway, because they're on their phones and computers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to school. They're doing their stuff at home. All that
Yeah.
stuff is going to make it even worse. On top of that, then you have to find how do you fit in the world too? On top of that, how's that going to happen?
I don't know. It's going to be weird.
I think the first, obviously, a lot of the nonfictions and a lot of the predictions is the metaverse, right? I think we're gonna have a really good sneak peek when GTA 6 comes out this year. Like, Dad, you haven't seen the demos and sneak peeks of it?
Uh-huh.
It is absurd.
It's
It is
crazy.
Because it's so realistic, or
It's so they spent $2 billion developing it. It cost more than the Burj Khalifa or the whatever
Burj Khalifa in India,
or
the golden plated palace
or no the skyscraper. What's that called?
in
Dubai.
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. It costs more than that to build GTA.
I was thinking Taj Mahal. My bad.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what they call it.
My bad.
But yeah, isn't it like they spent more than the biggest building in the world cost to build on this game?
Yeah. So, but is your life just entertainment at that point?
I think you're going to see a lot of people really look into religion, whether it's not just saying Christianity, but like any type of higher level of purpose, whether it's like self-fulfillment or whatever. I think you're going to have it.
But yeah, there's going to be a huge void in culture at large, and you got to imagine religion's going to be a huge part of filling that. You could definitely see a surge when people lose that purpose and identity. There's worse things. There's worse things you could replace it with.
They're all really explode, I think, and
I think so too.
All different directions.
I think you're right.
So, one of the questions I was thinking about when I was listening to this, was like two separate questions, kind of the same line as like, who decides these generations? Who are the ones coming up with them and deciding them, right?
The
And then
names, you
two,
mean?
why are they important? Like, why do you hear about them so much? And I think I did look up the those questions, but I think a lot of why it's important is to identify stuff like this, like to be able to start to see future
Yeah.
trends based on these overgeneralized categorizations of people. And I think being able to classify Gen Z and say like, why are they upset? Like, how are they struggling? Are they doing good? Why are they if they are struggling or doing good? And being able to predict the future. I would imagine that's why having these categories of ages of people is important, is to be able to start to identify trends and to predict the future.
So when I first started working back in the 80s, they were starting to talk about baby boomers starting to retire. They're planning for it in the next 20 years or so. And I'm a baby boomer by just like the last year or two, so I'm almost not a baby boomer. So I'm right in the border. But I remember looking at so many things, and there was top 10, top 20 fields coming up because the baby boomers are retiring, and almost every single one of them hit on the money. I can hit I can remember like retirement homes and travel, and what were some others? But I mean,
Real estate,
yeah, but the and
funeral homes,
healthcare, and
healthcare.
yeah, just retirement homes are just massive now.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, going back to what Connie said, I think that's why, because you can predict trends, financial, demographic trends, healthcare, different things like that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I before this episode, I've heard more discussions about the generations and stuff, and I've never paid any mind to it. Like, I couldn't tell you all of them. I couldn't tell you the years for each of them. But like, it's like I've always had the questions like, why should I care? But kind of after talking and listening about it, it does make sense that it has some type of significance. It plays a role.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. So there's something about it that is kind of alluring, kind of sucks you in. It's kind of it's almost like fun to categorize giant swaths of people and kind of put labels on them. I don't know what it is about it. Um, I don't want. I know what brand millennials has, and it doesn't represent me, but so I get the downside, but I don't know. It makes for a good conversation and kind of thinking about the future.
Yeah, I've always had like a general disgust towards it because I hate categorizing people. I hate putting like diagnosis and uh, stuff like that onto people because I think people cling to it a little bit too much, just in general. But
But that's also I identify things like trends economically
yeah,
and financially too.
yeah, and I'm starting to kind of see the importance of it, and it was a good listen and it's been a good discussion.
Yeah. So she kept coming back to housing as being like the root of all of this, and like most people, they just kind of say there's regulation that gets in the way, and even I'm surprised there hasn't been a political movement around it yet, because I think everyone would be like, "Oh, you have a plan to fix housing? I'm voting for you." But Colin, you bought a house early, right?
Yeah,
How old were you?
22.
When was your first house, Dad?
Oh, I got out of school when I was 24, and I lived with my mom and dad for a year, then bought a house. I saved up.
Yeah, just like Colin did. But you're like one of the few friends in your group that has a house, right?
Yeah, Austin just bought a duplex.
Nice. That's good for Austin.
He's
Happy
renting it,
for him.
not living there.
Is his mom on the other side? But so, like, when I was listening to this episode, was the first time I was having the thought, like, will my kids be able to afford a house? If this doesn't change, if it goes in the same direction it's going now, I need to plan on my kids living with me for a substantial amount of time, whether they're successful or not. I don't know. Maybe I'm maybe they'll go rent or something, or they'll move out. But I can't imagine trying to buy a house. Like St. Louis won the fighter, right? So the first thing we do is we look at houses in St. Louis. They're insane. They're insane. To $500,000 to get this crappy little house, and I'm looking at it. I've had a very good career, and I make a good amount of money for my age. I would hate to live in a house like that.
Yeah, you would need to do the boonies approach.
I do think with the coming of AI and robots and things that housing is going to be more cost effective in the future. I don't think it's going to be cheaper, less
Yeah.
per your income or whatever your credit you get for the government, whatever it is.
I'm just wondering how we get there. I mean, whatever your estimate is, I don't picture having an abundance of housing in the next 15 years.
No, and the building the houses could be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
The land's still going to be expensive though.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely. That's like we were talking about predicting what boomers like buy land. Right now, if you can buy land, it'll be the best thing you ever did in 20 years. I guarantee that. That's one of the safest bets I have. Better than Bitcoin.
Might have to disagree with you on that one.
You got your Bitcoin cup.
Yeah. I think like land's the safest bet in my eyes, but as far as like upside, having the property taxes and that stuff is
Yeah.
a killer when you're thinking about pure profitability, right?
Yeah, so
Taxes
she
worst
talked
thing at land is taxes. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
the
kinda-
property tax.
You're basically leasing land.
Don't you think they'll find a way to tax Bitcoin assets though?
Yeah.
They will, but it's still not like
What is that unrealized gains tax?
I think in like another 5 years, the average person will be paying at least $1,000 a month in taxes if you own your house. We're like at $700 a month, $800 a month in this house, and
I think there's going to be a politician that figures out housing's the key to the next election. That's kind of my mind's shifting that way. And if I was running for office, I'd be like, we're getting rid of property tax and replace it with unrealized gains because there's more people that can barely afford a house than there is that have the money to have assets. You know, like that would be a strategy to say these rich people have enough. Let's tax their assets and make your housing more affordable. I think that would land so hard. That'd be a big one. But so the financial thing was interesting. I really wanted to talk to Manning about this one because she described Manning to a T. Right? The Bitcoin, the meme stocks, the Robinhood, and
Yeah, we haven't even touched on that topic, and that was like a good majority of the podcast.
yeah, and that's kind of what she does. She's like a financial reporter ish, but sports gambling's up among young men.
Well, it's legal now.
Well, that's definitely part of it. But her case was the traditional routes, the high yield savings accounts in the stock market. They all seem unpredictable and unreliable. So why not hedge my bets on something fun or interesting or something I believe in, like GameStop, like sticking it to the man.
well, it goes back to social media because you see one person that did 100x on something. Now every person that sees that thinks they can do that, and they don't need to do that. They don't need to stick their money in stock or real estate for a few years and let it grow. They're going to make it overnight, right? So
Right.
I can do it right now. Why wait?
Yeah, and and as a media person doing that and presenting that like to young people, it's really hard as a young person not to want to do that and believe that you can become rich quick, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
See,
If you look on the internet, there's a million different ways to retire in the next year.
That's right. That's right.
We should send them money.
Just take my training course for $500 a month.
take my training course on how to start a training course.
It's interesting though because
I mean, like some of them you feel like it's like yeah, but it's like no, you can't.
I mean, you can laugh at it, but it is extremely popular.
Yeah.
Like Manning's not the only person I know that is in that world.
Meme
But
quote world or just in general?
just the like, how do I
I
describe it?
Man called me during COVID. He's like, Colin, you know any ways we can like start making money quick? Like that's serious. I've been looking at like this like drop shipping thing. You know anything about that? I was like,
Oh my gosh, he's built for it though, because he has a little less risk. He has more risk tolerance than most, especially more than us. He was always the one that kind of send it.
yeah,
It's just I don't
his
know.
tolerance has definitely dropped dramatically in the past couple of years.
As soon as he got with Anna,
He took some hits.
yeah.
Yeah, his risk tolerance scores dropped from a 98 to like a 72.
But there's something enticing about it. It's definitely it has almost an entertainment factor, and there's a little bit of the
That's your
you know,
adrenaline rush you get from gambling.
yeah. It feels kind of like that, like
It is
sports
that.
gambling. It feels like it's all kind of in that category. And I don't know, when you don't have a highly optimistic view of the future, what's the risk? I mean, if I'm screwed either way, if I can't afford a house either way,
Have fun, right?
let's roll the dice. Let's
Have
see.
some
Maybe I'll hit sevens
It's like the Pitbull song where he's like, I don't have enough money for rent, but we're going to go out.
and have a good time. That's right. That's right.
Party like it's our last night.
But I don't know. I'm going to be looking out for it with my kids because
Man.
I only see that getting more popular the less optimistic the future looks for these kids.
Honestly, dude, I find most of my motivation to like work overtime and to work on my side hustle because I feel like I have like a 10-year runway before like I have 10 years, and that's like kind of being aggressive, 10 years before like the AI wave hits and the robots hit, to where like I lose a lot of opportunity.
I think there's really there's a lot to that. Next 5 or 10 years, you're gonna lose a lot of your ability even to the game ground.
That's I found a lot of motivation in that right now.
They even say that with stocks and everything too, that because there's so much AI investing and stuff like that that it's really going to take the human aspect out of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be hard to understand how it works.
And if you can't separate yourself, if everything goes to zero, then why save up for retirement? Why not gamble on the Lakers? Why not put it all on black? It's interesting. You know, Conley, I'm glad you said that because I remember when I was really grinding in Palmdale. Like that was my fuel. Like this may be the last generation to ever place your family into that elite club. And my main thought was government's getting bigger and bigger, and they're kind of putting up moats behind them after they get huge. To where you get like a oligarchy, right? Where these extremely rich people they lobby the government, they make the laws to keep them rich, keep everyone else down. But now it's more who's going to own the robots, who's going to own the AI, who's going to own the energy. Like those three main things are going to rule the world. And I don't know about you, Conley, but I ran on that fuel for a long time.
Yeah. The other thing about it is I said like 10 years, right? And like you brought up, it gives you that thought of like, why don't I put it all in black, right? We've had this discussion before where if you're early, you're wrong, right? So
That's
like,
right.
hey, in 10 years, what if it's 30? What if it's 50?
That's right. That's right.
And if we're right that it's going to happen, right? We're still wrong because we jumped the gun too early, and that's why you can't go put it on black because you can be right, but it's going to look like you're wrong for another 15 years, right?
It's going to be a hard 15 years.
Why it's heading, I look at the exact opposite you guys do. I'm like, you want to get all your assets now before that hits because you won't be able to collect them after that. That's my view.
I think
And
that's
if you
what
have them at the beginning when it all goes to like zero for most things, you're going to be so far ahead of the game because you have assets where there's going to be the people with assets and then the rest of the world. That's how I see it.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't have money to get assets right now, right? So I need to.
Yeah, you're working on it. You got a
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You're
saying.
investing.
That's what I have to agree.
Yeah, I have the same opinion you, Dad. I think we're different in one aspect. The amount of assets you're going to have influence in that world, you got to be in top 0.001%.
No, I'm not talking about being like a oligarch or anything like that. I'm talking about just, I think if you have a certain amount of assets, I don't want to say a price or anything like that, but if you have a certain amount of assets, you're going to be able to be so much more affluent than everybody else. Everybody's going to have a universal basic income from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody's going to get the same amount of money, right?
Yeah.
That'd be what it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to do it that way.
But if you have assets, you can make money off your assets. But it's going to be hard
So
business, like when you're 10 years from now, when all these robots can do everything, what are you going to do?
right, but play this out with me. If everything goes to zero,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing, like, what are you going to buy? I think the only thing that people,
why can't you travel 10 times more than everybody else? Because you have assets.
because travel will be free. Everyone can travel.
You think it'll be?
It's like,
more like-
it's a long way away, and that's the utopia version. That's everything works out.
Yeah, I don't think like it's like you're gonna be able to travel more, but I don't like your cost of housing and your hotels and stuff like that are gonna be the same amount. I think so they're gonna be I don't think you'll have unlimited travel because I don't think those prices for hotels are gonna go down.
Yeah, it's like this.
The robots can build 1 million hotels. And they can have 5-star chef robots in each one of them, and they can artificially build beaches, and they'll have unlimited energy because there's solar fields in every desert. And you can just picture this utopia. If that utopia happens and everything goes to zero, everything goes to zero. And what are your assets worth?
20 years ago, I think that's like you're looking at like 30, 40, 50 years from now for that stuff, right?
Maybe. Yeah, you have an argument there. I just think in that world, in that utopia where everything works out, the only people who have assets that matter are the ones that own the robots and the power and or maybe the government officials that get to dole out, the UBI or have the robots that have the guns, that type of stuff.
Enough assets though, where I have like 3 houses. My main house, I've got a house in Florida and a house in Italy. Okay. So now that I have these assets, even though everybody's the same universal basic income, I can rent those other 2 out. I'm making a lot more money than you guys are because I'm getting money off my assets. You know what I mean? I can still go there for a month if I went to Florida, but the 11 months a year I can rent it out. I'm getting a lot of money off that. In the other house.
Yeah, I think you're right until things go to zero. Because after they go to zero, then
Maybe.
why would they pay you to go to your rental property when the one that
I don't think everything's going to go to zero. When they talk about it, I think it's all going to go towards zero. But certain things are just going to be like certain art. There's not going to be a Picasso that's ever going to go to zero because there's only 20 or 50 of them that are worth anything, right? They're not going to make more Picassos.
Yeah, maybe that's how you have status in this world, but I don't know. I think that very few assets will matter now.
It's hard to tell where it's going to go, that's for sure. But it really makes your mind really think just thinking about it because it's so many possibilities.
I mean, also, like all that it comes to mind is sci-fi movies when we start talking about that.
It is.
Yeah,
I've been on a sci-fi kick recently, and I think that's part of it. It's because we don't know which way it's going to land, but it's going to change. You know that for sure. There's huge change coming in our lifetime. Let's see what else we have. Kick it back to the podcast a little bit. So Connie, I'm curious what you think about this. The Gen Zers care more about quality of work than quantity. So for them, it's not about being there 40 hours a week. It's about let me do my presentation and go home.
Yeah, I think that's a very optimistic way to look at the Gen Z perspective.
What do you think, Dad?
I think
that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, I think that's a way to brand it. But I do feel like there are So that I would say that's mainly just an optimistic way to brand it, and it's a little bit of it's some crap. Uh, but I do feel like there are a lot of wasted or empty hours that are used to fill in that 40 hours a week. Say I did 40 hours a week, when genuinely it probably would be more productive just to take off that extra 30 minutes if you're not going to do anything.
Yeah, the problem is then the next week you're 30 minutes less and you still have 30 minutes on productivity. So
Yeah,
you
no,
cut that out.
and that's why I agree. I think it's bullcrap. But if I think about it, I feel like I think if I was my own boss, there would be weeks I would work less than 40 hours, and there'd be weeks I'd work way more than 40 hours. And it would balance out to like that of I only care about what I'm producing and not how many hours I'm working.
So
But I don't think that's like scalable.
did you guys read that text I sent out this morning about
Ghosting?
coasting?
Yeah.
You know,
about comfort.
yeah, like when I was your age or just starting work, I was wanting to like collect stuff like money and houses and stuff like that and to be comfortable when I'm older. But now that I'm older, I realize that there's nothing about life that's supposed to be comfortable. If you're going to have a successful life, it's all about being uncomfortable in every single thing, spiritually, emotionally, physically, job wise, family wise, economically, kid wise, hobby wise, anything. If you aren't stretching yourself, which is getting uncomfortable, you're only going to, like the old saying, you only coast one direction, downhill. You don't coast uphill. You only coast downhill.
Yeah.
Either green and growing or you're ripe and rotten. And if you don't, and you can have some time off every once in a while to, to rejuvenate. But if you aren't like, I see so many people my age that retire and I see them a year later. They're like, what happened to that guy?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I just want to retire and do nothing. It's like,
I saw
that's never in my mind to retire and do nothing. I want to retire and do everything. I'm the exact.
yeah.
I saw a quote the other day from Marcus Aurelius. It's really good. I wrote it down. Is comfort is the worst addiction.
That's it. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's to be about being uncomfortable. And so I'm tying this back into when we go to robots and no one has jobs, you got to find some uncomfortable stuff, or you're just going to go downhill like people when they retire, right?
I said this to Manning the other day. I really like this idea. Like, machines took away our labor. We don't have to plow fields anymore. We don't have to haul lumber. So what do we do now? We now pay to go to a gym and lift weights to simulate that work.
Yes.
There's going to be gyms in the future that is studying math and physics and writing and English. You mark my words, people are going to pay to stress their minds like we do for school right now.
So what about the guy that's like, well, I'm doing that too, but he's cheating because he's got a chip in his head that's doing this stuff.
No,
You're going to atrophy real fast if that chip's doing all your thinking. No, I like that, Dad, but so I had a different perspective on that quality of work versus quantity of work. I really like the model that pays you per output rather than per time. The per time model, the salary model, it's good for the company because they get generally more out of people. I think that's the idea, especially in return. And for the person, for the employee, it's kind of risk free. I know I'm going to get a paycheck every week, no matter how much work comes in, no matter how much work I do. I have a steady paycheck to pay my family or to feed my family. It amazes me when you see roofers come in the morning and they're done by 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever. But they bust their ass the whole time because they know when they're done, they get to go home. They don't have to stand on the heat anymore. And like salesmen, that job's always been perfect where it's like, no, your salesman's really easy. You either make a sale or you don't, and you get paid per sale. I would love, and I think this is one of the many ways corporations are going to lose to future companies, if I could pay my engineers based on design change. Like, we have all these metrics now, and I wish I could be like, this CR, it's got a bounty on it. The bounty's $500. Who wants it?
Yeah.
And I think they would 10x their productivity.
I don't know. I feel like you would plateau at a certain point. You might start digressing because there's going to be a lot of other like compound effects about that, right? It's like how much, like, so when that new developer comes to me with a question, how much am I going to help them if I am going to lose out on that bounty to the other senior developer who's working on it?
Well, it's not like they're not working at the same time, so it gets done faster. It's like next on the list. Who wants this ticket? Who wants to work it?
You want to complete it first so you can get the next one, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's
You
definitely
need
some.
to build a team to help others, and there are other effects I think that are
You'd have to be careful about how you set it up to not encourage, the wrong competition. But like, there'd be bounties for reviewing someone else's work. There'd be bounties for catching errors. There'd be bounties for you could. I'm really metric driven at work, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with this. They're used to seeing metrics for everything they do. This digital generation, they've been playing video games. They've been, this kind of internet culture. You either get a million likes or you don't. Right? Everything is metrics. You get a million views or you don't. And we have all these metrics now. I think you could win. I think I could beat a team that has comfortable people on salary jobs if I'm giving out, I don't care how much you work. I don't care how many hours. This CR, $1,000. You want to work it? Work it. I think we'd win.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's a good idea. I think there's a lot of merit to it. I just think it's not all positive, right? There's going to be some tough problems to navigate with that incentive structure.
I think you'd have a massive separation between winners and losers, kind of like in the sales force, right?
Yeah.
If you're not a good salesman, you don't stick around very long.
Yeah, I think the first place I worked, it almost feels like communism because you have so many people who are bad workers, but they don't want to fire them, so they keep them around, and they do nothing for a close amount of pay as the people who are doing all of the work. And it's like that's
one of the hardest things about being a manager in today's corporations is you got to go explain to that guy who's busting his butt and encourage him to keep busting it, even though he looks across the table and sees a guy 10 years his senior making 40 grand more do less work than him.
Yeah,
it happens all the time. So a little pivot. So one of the things they do at work is they don't have formal communication, right? When you started your career, Conley, did you have a way emails were written? Did someone explain it to you?
They had us build the signature, but that was it.
You didn't say Ryan, comma, and then you have your words, and then you have your thanks, Conley Price. You didn't have that format? Dad, I know you did. I don't know if it was email.
Well, we had to write letters to learn it. You mailed in
Well, it's
a
really
mailbox.
funny. I typically do that structure for the most part, but all the old people I work with, they don't. They're just like emails responses are okay. It is like
I think it's getting less and less formal, and I think text language is kind of working their way into professional world and even in people's vernacular. But I just remember Grandma, Dad. I remember Grandma Price being like, "No, this is how you write. There is one right way to do it. You're going to do it this way." And there's so much formality. So I'm curious, Dad, why was there such value placed on formality in Grandma's generation?
Well, I think that goes down with proper communication. To communicate effectively, like how many times does your text get mixed and understood because you're just abbreviating stuff? I mean, that happens a lot. When if you write it out,
happens for the boomers,
huh?
Yeah, for the boomers.
I bet stuff that you guys text me gets misunderstood more than you think, or each other.
Maybe. I mean, you got something there. It's just it seemed to me that
down without reducing the quality of stuff.
Yeah,
it might be but there's a point where you get so reduced down that your communication goes
Yeah.
down a lot.
It suffers. I got you on that, but there's something to that last grandma and grandpa's generation where like formality. I don't know. You wore a suit and tie.
Mhm.
All these things, they're so critical to their culture.
Yeah, that's good. It kind of goes into just the culture, like you said. Like, you dress up in a suit and tie. When you're in your suit and tie, you're working. You're in your work mode, right? That kind of gets you in the mode. If you're home on the computer trying to work and you're in your underwear and t-shirt, scratching yourself,
Yeah, I mean,
you're gonna be as productive, you think, as if you were like in suit and tie and like in a cubicle away from your house. You can focus more, right? I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. It's just
The
I
other
don't know.
aspect of it, but I think
I
that's
don't understand why it was so important to them, and why we lost it.
well, I
It
think
never caught with me.
well,
I
I
can
think
tell
a
you
lot
that.
of it, I can tell you why I think a lot of it was like that is when my parents were growing up, there was not mass production of anything. So, like when my mom was a very little girl back in the 30s, they had a family Bible. That was the Bible they had.
Yeah,
They passed it to the next generation.
that was the
So
only book in their house.
you took care of that Bible. If you had a hoe for your garden, you guarded that with your life. You never left it outside. You didn't let it rust. You didn't do anything because hoes were so expensive. To replace that is just nuts. Well,
Hose
now
are
you can,
expensive.
but now
That's a clip.
anything that breaks, your computer, your TV, your electric pianos, you just go replace it because it's cheaper than fixing it, right?
No, that's crazy.
Well,
That's
back
crazy
then
to
it was
think about.
so much more.
I think I
That's
left my rake outside all winter long.
yeah. So you don't care because if it's bad, you just go get another one for $5, right?
Yeah,
It was
that's
five
wild.
bucks 100 years ago for that rake.
Right. So it's like the scarcity means you value everything. So you follow all these little rules
To
to not
save,
waste anything, to
absolutely.
not waste ink on the letter. There's one
Yes.
way to do it.
Two, a lot of that professionalism started to end with Silicon Valley, right? And so the reason it was able to like before Silicon Valley, you were told when you get a job, you're professional. Those are the things you do, and your upper management enforced it, right? Well, Silicon Valley came along, and there's all these young people, and they're like, they didn't have anyone above them telling them
Yeah.
you have to do those things, right? So they were the first ones that came in this like world of
Mm,
abundance, and they were able to be like, we can make the rules.
yeah.
I don't think it's required, you know? And so that's like where all that professionalism I really think started to die out.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
That was really funny though. When it was like
Hoes are expensive. Hoes are expensive.
difference of the
We're gonna
gen-
have to pull that clip. We're gonna have to pull it
Back they are
and send
now.
it to the family chat. They're gonna love that. Um, one of the fun things about this podcast was thinking it's kind of cool, and I don't know if is mom around. This one's for her. It's like managing boomers and Gen Z at the same time is so funny. How different they are, and how you have to balance the two, their expectations, their actions, their attitude.
Well,
It's their
the conversation we've had, the difference opinions just with us.
yeah. And
We're
like
best.
what motivates them, like to be a manager right now and to have both those people underneath you is interesting. It's very interesting. But you'll feel that one day, Conley. When are you getting that manager job?
Um, my next move, it'll probably be a team lead position. So end of this year, that translate.
Yeah, I did. I was looking at my notes for the next point.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because at my job, my company, we're consultants, and one of the coolest things when I started there is we have these weekly meetings, and it's our full team, and it's about 40 developers. And I look around, and it's like 20-year-old kids maintaining and developing the tax management software for
Yeah.
tens of millions of people for the state. It was like really kind of inspiring because I was looking around like it's us like making it work. there's also a 40-person developer team for the Department of Revenue, and there's
Not as young, I'm guessing.
yeah, and they are that other generation.
To the other side.
And so it's probably 20 on average, probably 15 to 20-year age gaps between us and our counterparts over there. And it is pretty interesting to see the difference. I mean, every aspect is like different, and we're trying to rub off on each other right now. This past, like, since 2025 started, we've had a big initiative to work with each other more and kind of standardize operations, communications, and stuff like that. And I think it's just kind of bring us each of the generations more towards the middle.
Yeah.
Because there's good practices on both sides, right? So it's standardizing towards the best practices for both.
They're trying to tell you like how to use a semicolon, and you're trying to explain what emojis are.
Yeah. Our project managers had a big meeting at headquarters, and one of the things he came back is they had emoji training. He's like, so I figured out that he's like, I figured out this
I
generation.
want to see the government's emoji training.
No,
That has got to be funny.
it
That has
was
got to be.
it was for the private company, but he was like, I figured out hearts are they don't mean I love you anymore. They're like ways to like kind of say thumbs up on stuff. And
Love it.
True, people do it. Like you'll get hearts on your messages all
I
the time.
remember getting the first heart and being like, "Is this okay?"
I agree. I thought the same thing. I definitely didn't do it probably till the last couple months because it's like so frequent, and it's like it doesn't feel weird to do it.
Yeah. It's funny how those change, but you just got me picturing like a government emoji training. An eggplant means dick.
This is a dope scene.
Unless you're a farmer.
When there's a water fountain and then the eggplant.
It'd be like one of those Allstate commercials where they're like, or they're teaching.
Don't become your dad.
Oh yeah, don't become your parents. Those are great. Those are really funny because sometimes they're all the time they're spot on. But when they say something that you do, you're like, oh.
Cool.
I had another one. It was they talked about Mr. Beast and his letter out to the YouTube community, and it kind of explained his success. And he said, your job isn't to make a creative video, it's not to make a funny video, it's to make the best YouTube video, because YouTube likes eyeballs for a long time, and you're trying to maximize those metrics. And it got me thinking, I really like metrics, but I really hate, like, they killed baseball, right? They're killing basketball. I think that's one of the reasons basketball sounds, everyone plays the same way, right? You shoot a bunch of threes, you have long defenders, right? So many things in life. There's a meta for every video game now. Everyone uses the same thing. I know I'm talking, things you two don't understand, because neither of you play video games. But
strategy for each video game instead of. Never mind.
Well, that's kind of what it is. There's like, they tweak which guns are more powerful, and then everyone very quickly through math figures out which ones are the best, and everyone uses the same one. And it's just like, I don't know. It got me thinking, like, what's going to be next thing to be ruined? There's going to be something else that gets ruined by metrics soon that I'm not thinking about.
That reminded me. So we had a disagreement, a stronger disagreement that people don't stop watching the NBA because of what they represent.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that, Dad?
Well, so Dad, I'll start. No, I'll start. Because I said if anyone is not watching the NBA because of political things, you're an idiot. And it wasn't directed at you. I swear to God, it wasn't directed at you. But it's like, I'm a Lakers fan. I've watched a lot of LeBron. Yes, LeBron has made political statements over the last 15 years. But never at once have I turned on an NBA game and him started reading the Communist Manifesto at me.
Oh, I can tell you, I quit watching the NBA for like 2 seasons back like in 22, 23 because it got so political. It was like, I can't do this. That and they were the national anthem back then with the NFL. I quit watching the NFL for like a year or two. It just got, I think they just got away from what they're supposed to entertain people, not divide people.
Hunter had a really good take on this on his podcast. He said that it's like indicators of if the NBA like does the NBA care about you because they're directly doing things that the audience doesn't care about. You know, they're making statements, making political statements that the audience doesn't care about. That's not what they're asking for.
It was like who? Like Steve Kerr and Popovich in some post game that no one freaking watches? Like, when's the last time you turned on a game and you saw anything remotely political?
It doesn't matter if you see it
It's
on
all
TV. You're going to see it on social media.
all the words they put on the uniforms and the helmets and their like they've gotten better, but they were just
they're shifting.
But then
See, Tom's bringing up stuff to get us arguing, Dad. We
too. It started.
We both like watching basketball. We can both turn on a game and watch it, and you can root against LeBron. I get that, but the whole conversation about ratings being down because of political reasons, I don't buy it. I don't think anyone's flipped on a screen and been like, politics, turn it off.
I turn like college football on in the morning, and it's just like America at its peak. You got Pat McAfee shooting cannons out there. I want to watch college football, you know?
But you underestimate old people, Sterling. A lot more flexible. I know you're hard to believe. I'm a lot more flexible than most people my age as far as like going back to the NBA. And I have so many of my friends that won't watch any of that stuff anymore.
They don't forget it. They don't forget that 5 years ago they
walked out of the store because somebody did something politically in their store trying to represent this store, and they'll never go back to that store again. Let alone NBA or I hear this stuff a lot from people.
It's called integrity, Sterling.
I guess I have another. Well, I think people are just not watching appointment television anymore. Like football is still king. Because there's only 17 games a year, and that scarcity matters. And I wish the other leagues would take note of that they won't. But when it all gets pinned on politics, I don't know. I'm on board with that. I got a bonus question for you guys. What do you guys say, Conley?
I don't think it's all like the whole reason why the NBA ratings are down, but I would say it's a good portion.
It contributes.
Bonus question. I heard this on a different podcast, but I listened to it this morning. I wanted to ask you guys. If you're stuck in a third world country and in their prison and you get one phone call to call someone to break you out, who you calling? That was a really interesting question.
I know who I'm calling. To break you out or get you out?
To get you out. However, they could out-lawyer the country. They could go in like Rambo.
I know you. I'm saying, you want me to go, Conley, or you want to go?
Did you see it?
You go, Dad. You go first. It might change my answer because I was going to pick you. You can't pick Trump. No. That's not a bad one. He will get you out. But it's got to be someone you have. Like, let's say it's someone from your contact list.
Crap,
you can't call Trump.
None of my friends are going to help me.
I might call Dad because he'd probably come get arrested with me.
That's what I'm thinking. Dad, I really would.
Because Dad would he's either gonna save you or he's gonna get arrested.
You have there with you. At least you have a buddy, a bunkmate. All right. One more question before we end this. What's your favorite podcast right now?
Dad, you can go first.
Mine has to do with Bitcoin, which is a shocker.
Yeah, we're all shocked.
Actually, the MicroStrategy side of it, or strategy as it is known now, it's not MicroStrategy anymore, with Michael Saylor. There's a guy that does a MicroStrategy pod or YouTube every single day. It comes out about 6 o'clock in the morning. So I really like it because
it's daily.
Yeah, and it also gives a lot of different angles. That Bitcoin's hard enough to understand. Then you got MicroStrategy and the stuff they're doing, that's another level above Bitcoin. It's like
Did
I
that podcast,
understand,
did it
like
nail the dip?
what's that?
Did it nail the dip we're in right now?
The biggest thing I've seen is that in the last like 12 months or so, the Bitcoin price is trailing the global liquidity supply by 10 weeks almost perfectly, which means uh, in first or second week of April, Bitcoin should start going up again. So let's see if that happens. If it does, it's following global
But
liquidity.
was that podcast like on in front of that?
What's that?
Was the podcast you listened to, were they predicting that after Trump announced the strategic reserve, it'd go down?
No. But there was a few people that did.
Really? That's impressive.
And they said like 80 to 70, and that's kind of the range it went to.
What about you, Conley? What's your favorite right now?
Well, I think the obvious one's a follow-up podcast, but
Let's go. Mine too. I changed my answer.
after that, Modern Wisdom has just been flaming hot. The
Agreed.
Peel Network is really good.
Agreed.
They have on venture cap. They have founders.
Which one?
It's called the Peel. It's this VC guy, and he has. There's a lot of VC guys that have podcasts now. But
If you're
he
a
has
VC guy, it doesn't have, but they have access to some cool people.
Yeah, and like I'll say a million times, venture capitalists have to be unbiased, or else they're not going to be successful. They have to be like genuinely unbiased to hear out opinions, to whether they like people or not, to be successful. And I think that's why they make really good podcasts, because they can like break down people and ideas and topics. But he has very, very early stage companies on, and there's been some that have been successful. And it's been cool to watch their journey. The ice coffee hour, he is very hit and miss depending on his guest. Some really good episodes. He has Graham and someone is the host on that one.
Oh, that reminds me. You guys see the pyramid stuff?
Crazy.
Mm-mm.
So this guy took LiDAR technology and scanned around the pyramid and found that there's these huge pillars underneath it. They go, what was it?
It's like 4 times the distance down as it is tall.
Wow.
Right.
That's nuts.
And they have these spiral stairs in them, so you can access the bottom. Then they're on blocks themselves. And so like it's being disputed because it's just a paper that just came out. So there's not consensus around it, but that's if it's true, it's wild. It's
Like,
wild.
that's gonna like that's so crazy if that is true.
So you like that light video I sent you, didn't you?
I liked it a lot.
That's crazy, wasn't it?
I liked it a whole lot. Yeah,
It's
I mean,
think about it.
every time I see a video like that, I'm like, I should have been a physicist. It was by far my favorite topic in school. I would love to do nothing but nerd out on physics all day, every day, if I can afford it. But yeah, it was cool. Light, Conley, I'll sum it up for you in 5 seconds. Light does not go in one direction. It goes in every possible direction all at once. And it cancels out except for in the narrow version that you're seeing with your eye. And you are going in every direction possible right now. But you have more inertia. You have more action than light does. Light has least amount of action because they have low mass.
So it's like a seeking algorithm where it's like a mapping algorithm to find
if you want to bounce the light off my hand into the screen, it would go on the shortest path, right? But if you block that light and then block some of these other lights on the side here that comes out to the side that cancel other ones out, it'll come through and it'll bounce over here and still get there, not at the right angle. Like
have you seen the 2-slit videos, Conley?
With the particles, yeah,
that prove the light's a wave and not a particle.
Yeah.
It's like that, only now it proves that light goes in every direction.
That would be a great question to ask someone, like just to get to know someone. Do you know that the
2-slit problem?
2 slits?
Are you a nerd like me? All right, let's wrap. Episode 23 of the Follow Up Podcast. Thank you, Kirk, for joining. It was a blast.
Thanks for
We'll see
having
you
me.
guys next week.
That was a real boy session right there. That was good stuff.